Believers IAS Academy's daily newspaper analysis. So, in today's Hindu analysis video, we have taken up a few articles that is important. So, in the first page, we have the article which says Supreme Court pulls up government on ex gratia. So, what is ex gratia? It's a Latin term which means by favor. And why has the Supreme Court said this? Because Supreme Court on Wednesday pulled up the National Disaster Management Authority, of which the Prime Minister is the ex officio chairperson, for failing its duty to recommend ex gratia to the families who lost their loved ones due to COVID-19. So those people's family, those who have died due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So to those people, an ex gratia, a payment has not been made by the Disaster Management Authority. So it has the moral responsibility to make that payment. So basically what an ex gratia payment is. So it is made to an individual by an organization or government or any kind of institute for damages or claims, but it does not require the admittance of liability by the party making the payment. So that organization, the government or whatever organization which is making ex gratia. So ex gratia is when the organization does not have the liability. They do not have they are not obligated to compensate the individual, but they are voluntarily doing it. Okay, so in this article we have also seen the mentioning of National Disaster Management Authority. So we look at what this body is. So it is the apex body of disaster management, and it is a statutory body too, and the law that is empowering this organization is the Disaster Management Act, and this body was constituted back in 2006. So what does they do? Okay, before that we look at which are the members, who are the members. So it is headed by the Prime Minister, that is a chairperson is the Prime Minister. Okay, and it has provisions to add 9 more members. And the cabinet minister is the vice chairman. Now that position, it is not like necessary to fill the position. Like it is said that only Prime Minister and 5 members are in it presently. And also the NDMA secretary is headed by the secretary, is responsible for providing secretarial support and continuity. And along with this, NDMA can have 8 Minister of State as members. Now, what is the function? What is the what does NDMA do? Basically, they are the ones who approve the national disaster plan. So, what actions has to be taken, what kind of funding has to be done, which force has to be deployed. All these things are included in the national disaster plan, right? And that is approved by the NDMA. And they lay down policies on disaster management. They lay down guidelines to be followed by state authorities in drawing a state plan, that is state disaster plan. Then lay down guidelines to be followed by different ministries of department of central government for the same thing, and also recommend provisions of funds for the purpose of mitigation, support to other countries affected by major disaster as determined by central government. So suppose our neighboring country is facing a disaster like an earthquake or something. So they might our government might take the decision to help this country. So at that time, they are supposed to, this NDMA is supposed to support other countries too, and then take measures for preventive or prevention of disasters or mitigation. So those measures which has to be taken in order to prevent a disaster, that comes under the function of NDMA. Initiate capacity building to deal with disasters. Better development of infrastructure to deal with the disasters. So all these things are the functions of the National Disaster Management Authority. So when it comes to disaster, disaster is happening in a country like a flood or a pandemic or earthquake or anything. The primary responsibility to take care of the situation goes to the state government. But it is not just the responsibility of the state government. The central government has to provide proper, adequate support to the state government too. So they have to lay down plans, policies and guidelines, provide technical and financial and logistical support, and even deployment of forces. All these things comes under state government's purview. And the implementation, on the field, it is going to be, most of these plans and everything is going to be carried out by the operation, by district administration, and it is in collaboration with state government and central government. So under NDMA, we have, different bodies like National Executive Committee. So it is going to assist, it is going to monitor, the national authority in the performance on its functions. So it's going to assist the national authority, that is NDMA, in the performance of its functions, and the Union Home Secretary is its ex officio chairperson, and it's going to coordinate and it is the coordinating and monitoring body for disaster management to prepare a national plan, monitor the implementation of national policy, etc. So this is what National Executive Committee is about. Then National Institute of Disaster Management. So they are going to deal with the human resource development that's required, for NDMA, and also they are going to deal with the capacity building. Then we have NDR, National Disaster Response Force. So it is a specialized force for disaster response. So which means you might have seen in news, like whenever a disaster happens, those people who comes in camouflage to help, right? So although our military is involved and the police force, CAPF and everything is involved, like there is a specialized force for this, which are usually at the forefront of disaster management, that is National Disaster Response Force. So the members are taken from the military, CAPF, police, from different forces is taken. Then when it comes to state, we have State Disaster Management Authority too. Now this is going to be headed by the Chief Minister. Okay. And State Executive Committee, just like we have National Executive Committee and to assist the NDMA, we have State Executive Committee in states to assist the State Disaster Management Authority, that is the SDMA. Okay, and this is going to be headed by, just like here Union Home Secretary is ex officio chairman, this will be the State Home Secretary. Okay, and we also have a district level District Disaster Management Authority, and obviously it's going to be headed by the DM, District Magistrate. IAS officers will be heading this institution, this organization. So that's all about NDMA, and the next article that we have taken up is from the editorial session, which is written by a celebrity, Kamal Hassan. So he talks about the amendment to the draft bill for Cinematography Amendment Act. Okay, so Cinematography Act was actually initiated in 1952. So the central government, what they are going to do is bring an amendment to it, and they are specifically, adding a certain provision to the subsection, certain provision to the section 1, subclause 1 of section 6 of Cinematography Act of 1952. So what they are adding, Central will give revisionary powers and enable it to re-examine films already cleared by the Central Board of Film Certification. So we already have, Central Board of Film Certification. CPFC is already in place in order to deal with, censorship of the cinema, right? Of movies, of the digital content. That's going to be shown in theaters and TV and all, right? So why is, first of all, censorship required? So there might be in movies, if censorship is not there, there might be, we know that our country is a very diverse country, different kind of cultures, different kind of religions, everything mingled together. So any kind of, anti-national elements could be there. Some elements could be there which is going to hurt, could be there, which might hurt the sentiments of religious sentiments or cultural sentiments or whatever, language related, could hurt the sentiments of people, which might result in some kind of unrest. Or maybe there could be pornographic content which is not really good for public viewing or general public viewing, in the sense children and all are going to be watching movies and going to theaters and watching TV. So considering all these situations, we have a CBFC in place to deal with it. So this amendment is saying that center is going to have, the government is going to have a revisionary power. That is, even after a movie or a what kind of whatever kind of video or picture is going to be given assent by the CBFC, the central government is going to have revisionary power, that at any point of time central can do a revision of this whatever content it is, and it can change its the assent that's given to it, the permission that's given to it. It can say that it is not good for public viewing. It can cancel its certificate. So that can be done. So the Kamal Hassan in this article, who is actually a filmmaker and an actor and also now a political leader, who is a president of the Makkal Needhimayam party, is actually criticizing this move of the government. Now the bill has not been laid in the parliament. There is a draft that has been released. So this article is based on that. And what is there in this act? So the current act, what is the original one, is having section 6, which already equips the center to call for records of proceedings in relation of a film certification. So right now the government has the power to call for records of proceedings in relation to a film certification, but revision is not there exactly. And the ministry explained that the proposed revision means that the central government, if the situation so warranted, has the power to reverse the decision of the board. That the censor board is going to take a decision that this film this much, for example, okay, this scenes has to be removed, but then okay, this is perfect for public viewing in theaters and in TV or anywhere. And then again the central government is going to have the power to reverse the decision of the board. Now the draft comes shortly after the abolition of Film Certificate Appellate Tribunal. So this appellate tribunal was a place where the filmmakers could go if they feel that their film has been unjustifiably not given permission or not given certificate. So that has been removed recently, and apart from that, now the government is again trying to bring an amendment to the existing Cinematography Act to again curtail the rights of filmmakers, the rights of the public for the right of speech, the right of expression. That is what this act is about, and some persons has called it as super censor. Now another thing that's going to be there is that age-based categorization and classification is going to be a part of this amendment. That is, presently we have 3 categories. That is U for unrestricted public exhibition, and then U/A that requires parental guidance for those children who are younger than less than 12-year-old. Then there is A for adult films. This is the 3 categories that we have under the Cinematography Act. But now the new draft that proposes, okay, now it is presently not there, like when it becomes a bill and then it gets passed and becomes an act, then this will come into existence. So the draft contains the proposal to have further age-based groups, that is unrestricted and adult 7+, UA 13+, and UA 16+. So these are according to the age of the people. Like this can be watched by people who are 7 years or elder, and 13 years or plus, and 16 years or plus. You might be familiar with this if you are subscribing to OTT platforms. They show their censorship like that, right? So they are going to bring it to the mainstream, mainstream films too, for theaters and all. Now another provision is for anti-piracy regulation. So we need to know that until now Cinematography Act did not have any regulation for anti-piracy. So this is a good provision. Actually, piracy is a big issue when it comes to the film industry. Now a lot of people are putting a lot of effort into filmmaking. There are going to be a lot of technicians, actors, story writers, script writers, and a lot of people are putting a lot of effort into a movie. And people just being able to, the general public just being able to download it from a torrent website or anywhere is actually not justifiable. That it is going to be, people are going to get to watch it for free, so the collection of these movies might get reduced. So this is not a good motivation for this industry, right? So until now Cinematography Act didn't have proper anti-piracy regulation. Now through this amendment they are going to bring in anti-piracy regulation. So there are no so it is going to have punishment from shall not be less than 3 months. Not less than 3 months can extend to 3 years. Okay, between 3 months and 3 years, imprisonment can be expected if you are caught for anti-piracy. And also there could be fine minimum 3 lakhs to maximum 5% of the audited gross production cost or with both. So this is the kind of punishment that you can get if you are caught for anti-piracy once this amendment bill becomes an act. And then permanent certificate. So okay, it proposes to certify films for perpetuity. Currently, right now what CBFC does is they give you a certificate for which is valid for only 10 years. So they are gonna give permanency for that. And then okay, so what is this act basically doing? One is they are going to give an additional layer of direct government censorship, which is again going to complicate the situation, and the government will have the power to not give assent, not give certificate for those movies which is not in the best interest of the government, which might be against the ideological ideology that the government might be upholding. So they are going to gain an upper hand over our rights to speech and expression, right? And the films could be held up longer for recertification based on random objections, even if it is already certified by the CBFC. So let's say a film gets the certificate from CBFC. Now saying that the government saying that we have to revise it, they can actually put the film on a hold. They can extend it to a long period of time, which is going to actually affect the industry and the producer and all the people who were involved in the work. Right. So this is what basically the problems associated with the Amendment Act. So in the article, the author says that this is actually a way in which the government is trying to curtail the silence its people. So film movies are one way of expression of people, right? So bringing putting more censors to that is actually a strike on our freedom to speech and expression, which is mentioned in Article 90 of our Constitution, Fundamental Rights. So that's all about it. So the next article says that May slower spending pegs fiscal deficit at 8.2%. So we have seen an improvement in our fiscal deficit to 8.2%. So we'll go back to basics and see what fiscal deficit is. So fiscal deficit is a condition when the expenditure of the government exceeds its revenue in a year. So let's say you have a certain amount of income. You have a 10 rupee income and your expenditure is 15 rupees. So that 5 rupees is going to be your fiscal deficit. That is basically, now it's not just that simple, there will be a little bit of complication. Now, fiscal deficit is equal to total expenditure minus total revenue excluding the borrowing, which means, okay, now you just take the same example. You have 10 rupees, now you have expenditure of 15. Now you might be getting money from other sources, right? You might borrow it from your friend or your family, so you have more money. Now that amount will not be calculated here. So without that, what revenue you're getting and what's your expenditure, the difference between that is fiscal deficit. If it's negative, then that's fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit is a shortfall in a government's income compared with its spending. The government that has a fiscal deficit is spending beyond its means, which means beyond, more than what you're getting, you're spending. The government is spending more than what it's getting. So the income figure includes only taxes and other revenues and excludes money borrowed to make up the shortfall. Okay, so when you calculate it in a different way, so what is fiscal deficit? It could be the amount of money that you're borrowing, right? Your borrowing requirements will be your fiscal deficit too. So here, fiscal deficit is total expenditure of the government. This will include capital and revenue expenditure too. So the expenditure that is required for smooth running of the government, payment of salaries, pensions or running of the state economy, everything, and also capital expenditure, whatever expenditure you're making for asset creation, for infrastructure development, all this, minus total income of the government. Now this will be revenue receipts, though from all the taxes and not tax, incomes like interest and all these things, and then recovery of loans and other receipts. So that is fiscal deficit. So what is the reason for high fiscal deficit? During the pandemic time, we have seen an increase in fiscal deficit. So what is the reason due to that? Because there were lower revenue realization due to the lockdown, pandemic-induced lockdown. We had to, the economic activity came to a stop, right? So because of disruption in normal business activity following the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown, there were lower revenue receipts, and because of that, when your income is less, your fiscal deficit can increase, and also higher expenditure. The government have to spend more for food, and for vaccine protection, even public distribution. So for all these things, your expenditure is increasing, and that is just for the bare necessities. It's not for creation of assets. It's not for a good infrastructure development. And in that case, again, fiscal deficit has increased. And we look at the income component when it comes to we have said that total income of the government, right? Which are the income component of the government? One is taxes. Different kind of taxes we have: corporate tax, income tax, custom duties, excise duties, GST. So like different kind of taxes is the revenue receipts, which will go into the revenue receipts. It will be the part of revenue receipts of the government. And non-tax, external grants. Remember, it's not money we are borrowing; it's the grants that we are getting. We do not have to give it back. It's not we are not obligated. So then interest receipts. Whatever a loan has been taken from us, we are getting interest on that. And then dividends and profits. Let's say we are gaining from some of our PSUs, public sector undertakings. Then that will become our non-tax income. And receipts from union territories. And then also expenditure component. What are our expenditures? One is payment of salaries, pensions, emoluments, creation of assets, and also funds for infrastructure development, health, and numerous other sectors. So these kind of expenditures government will be having. Now, how is fiscal deficit balanced out? As I've said, we are borrowing it from others, and also there is other way. Borrowing it from central bank is there. Borrowing it from other countries, international organizations could also be there, and also raising money from capital markets. Treasury bills, bonds. So when government is issuing treasury bills and bonds, government is a very trustable institution, right? So the banks, people are going to invest in treasury bills and bonds, and as a result, the money will flow to the government. So this is how they close in the fiscal deficit. And is fiscal deficit good or bad? This generally will look like fiscal deficit is always a bad thing, because we are getting lesser than what we are spending, right? But it can be good when high fiscal deficit can be good for the economy if the money spent goes to the creation of productive assets. That is, for example, you are investing in a PSU and developing business, increasing the export, and gaining more money. That is one example. So such kind of asset creation, or you are developing your infrastructure, and as a result of better infrastructure and better research centers and all, you are getting more investment to the country. So that is again another way we are spending for asset creation. So in that way, it is going to come back to us in the future. We are going to gain in the future. Our people are going to have a better standard of living over some period of time. So from that angle, fiscal deficit can be good. It can be bad if it is because of revenue deficit. It is because if you are not getting enough money, or if your spending is more because just for the running of the country. So in that context, it can be bad. Now, what are the targets that we are supposed to follow when it comes to smooth functioning of our economy when it comes to fiscal deficit? So first of all, in 2003, according to the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, our country is supposed to limit fiscal deficit up to 3% of GDP by 2021. So this was one target. And then N.K. Singh Committee in 2016 recommended that we should limit our fiscal deficit up to 3% of the GDP until 2020. and 2.8% of GDP in 2020-21 financial year, and 2.5% by 2023. So these are the instructions given by expert councils. Now the next article, it speaks about current account deficit widens as imports revive. So our country is importing more right now, and as we are we are getting better from the lockdown situation and all, we have increased our import, and our export is actually not compensating for that. Our imports are increasing, and as a result our current account deficit has increased. So we look at what current account deficit is. So first of all, what is current account? Current account measures the flow of goods, services and investment into and out of the country. So basically it shows the income generated from the foreign sources, the kind of income that we are generating from foreign sources. How? When we are exporting our materials, our goods, our services, the remittances that we are going to get, the money that we are going to get. So that is shown in the current account. So all the transactions for exports and imports of goods, services, unilateral transfers and investment, income, etc. will fall under the current account. So the receipts are shown as positive items or credit in the current account. So when you are exporting your products, when you are exporting your services and you are getting paid for that, then it will show as positive or it will show as credit in the current account. But when you are paying for the services that you're getting or the imports that you're getting, then that will show as negative items or debit in the current account. Now, if net value negative, if the net value in the current account is negative, then the current account, then it can be called as current account deficit. That is, this is your country. You are importing and you are paying, let's say 5 rupees, and you are exporting to other countries, and you are getting, let's say 10 rupees. Then what is this? Here you are earning more, right? So that will be positive. So that is not current account deficit, that is current account surplus. This is good for a country. Now imagine the opposite of this. You are exporting, you are importing and you are paying like 10 rupees, and here you are exporting and you are only getting 5 rupees. So in that case you are going to get a negative amount. So that will be the current account deficit. So that is what current account deficit, and it can be measured as a percentage of GDP. So the formula for calculating current account deficit is current account is equal to trade gap, that is export minus import, plus net current transfers, that is the amount, and plus net income abroad. So net income abroad is your remittances, that what your citizens are going to get, that is non-residents are going to invest, are going to pay to the residents, and the residents are going to pay to the non-residents. So the remittances that you are getting, the net income will be calculated. So that plus trade gap, and this net current transfers will be all the grants, all the perks and all you are gonna get from abroad. So that trade gap plus net current transfer plus net income from abroad will be your current account. Now, when a country is facing increasing current account deficit, then that is not good for the country's economy, because at that time the other foreign countries, other multinational companies won't find our country as a good option for investment. So that shows that our country, increasing current account deficit shows that our country is uncompetitive and investors may not be willing to invest here. And in India, the current account deficit could be reduced. How can we reduce it? So when we are avoiding, the unwanted imports, and we are going to export more. So when we improve the manufacturing sector of our country and we produce more goods, and when we export it, we produce better services here, and when we export it, and when we earn more, and when we are going to take lesser imports, and when we are going to increase our exports, then we can develop our current account deficit. I mean, we can reduce our current account deficit. So what are the non-essential imports in our country? Like gold, mobiles, electronics, these can be avoided. If we increase our manufacturing sector, these we can produce for ourselves, right? Our country can produce. And gold, which is we Indians have a craze for gold, so it is important more and more. And if this is avoided, and also if we, for example, if we switch to green energy, we are taking more renewable energy, and we are going to not depend much on the oil or the crude, then we can cut down on the crude import too, right? So in that way we can deal with the current account deficit. And the current account deficit and fiscal deficit are together known as twin deficit, because they both are going to add to each other, because both reinforce each other. That is, higher fiscal deficit leads to higher current account deficit, and vice versa. So these two problems our country is facing actually, and if we take proper methods to increase our investment in asset creation, to boost our manufacture, and we improve our export and reduce our import for non-essential commodities, then we can definitely improve the economy of our country. So that's all about it. For more such videos, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on our social media platforms, join our Telegram channel to receive all the kinds of updates, UPSC related updates, infographics, daily current affair materials, quiz, and so on. And do visit our website to see the kind of course structure that we provide, and you can always contact us for more UPSC related queries and also UPSC related guidance. Thanks for watching the video.